Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, Quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is
na kabla tuanze ningependa kumwalika Triza aweze kutuanzishia na maombi. Asante.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the gift of this day. We thank you that everyone here present is healthy and ready to face the day. Thank you that even for the deliberations that are ahead of us, you will guide us through, and that something constructive is going to come out of it. In Jesus' name we pray.
Asante sana. Ningependa kuanza kwa wimbo wa taifa ya Kenya na Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Kwa hivyo ningeomba tuweze kusimama kwa national anthem. Tafadhali. Asanteni sana. Tunaweza kaa. Kwanza ningependa kuomba your apologies for starting a bit late. Hii kikuwa kikao chetu cha mwisho ambacho tunaweza kufanya katika mazungumzo ambayo tunafanya na Wakenya. Tulianza Kisumu, tukaelekea Eldoret, Nakuru, Nairobi, na tumekuja kumalizia Mombasa. Mkikumbuka vizuri sana kikao hichi kilikuwa kinafaa kufanyika Jumatatu, lakini kwa sababu moja ama nyingine tukaweza kuahirisha hadi siku ya leo, na tunafurahia kuwaona umejumuika na sisi ili tuweze kujadiliana kuhusu mikakati ambayo imetuleta leo, ikikuwa ni the Kenya Pipeline Tariff, the storage and pipeline tariff, ambayo itakuwa inachukua effect for a period of 3 years. Kwa kikao tuko na wakurugenzi wetu kutoka EPRA ama na Kenya Pipeline ambao wali submit application kwa EPRA ili tuweze kujadiliana na nyinyi, na ni kwa kipindi kifupi tukianzisha. Ningependa tuanze na kujua nani ambaye ako kwa nyumba hii ya leo. Kwa hivyo ningesihi protocol team waweze kupitisha microphone round ili tuweze kujua tumejumuika na kina nani, unatoka wapi, ili ambapo tukijadiliana tuweze kujua nani yako represented kati yetu.
Good morning. I'm calling so much Ola Energy Mombasa.
Good morning. I'm Omar Mohammed, from Subira Shipping Contractors.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis Chege from Space Ventures Limited.
Good morning. My name is Robert Lugo from Auckland Inspection Services.
Yes, good morning. My name is John Kivete, Force Use Supplies.
Good morning. My name is Simon Sang from Kenya Pipeline Company.
Good morning, Robin Lokoyan from Kenya Pipeline.
Good morning. My name is Peter Genga Umondi from Eoba Yusuf and Sons Limited.
Good morning. My name is Ayman from Eoba Yusuf and Sons Limited.
Good morning. My name is Abdullah Omar from EPRA. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ezra Terer from EPRA.
Good morning. My name is Jen Mwasi, also from EPRA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Kitili from IPRA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nema Mwendo from EPRA.
Norbert Mahenia, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority.
Good morning, Jimmy Mwakalama, VTTI.
Good morning, Jacqueline Kiamba, VTTI.
Elizabeth Akinyi, Kenya Pipeline Company.
Hello, Zilpa Bongo, Kenya Pipeline Company.
Pius Mwenda, Kenya Pipeline.
Good morning, everyone. Ubero Karanja, EPRA.
Good morning, David Kariuki, EPRA.
Good morning, Edward Kinyo, EPRA.
Okay, asante sana. At this juncture, I would like to invite Dr. Mutua, who is the acting Director, Economic Regulation, to come and read the DG's remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Habari za asubuhi. This morning I have the honor to read the speech on behalf of the Director General, who is out of the country on official duty. So nitasoma tu the way it is. You know, sometimes when you are sent to read, you just read. So to the industry stakeholders present, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I take this opportunity to welcome you to this stakeholder engagement workshop. And first, I wish to express my sincere gratitude for your presence here today. It is because of such commitment that the energy sector continues to make significant strides. Kenya heavily relies on pipeline system. Therefore, cost-effective and safe means of transportation of petroleum products is critical. The system is managed by Kenya Pipeline, which plays a critical role in fostering the development and growth of Kenya's petroleum subsector by ensuring sufficient and reliable supply of petroleum products. Additionally, KPC is a significant cost center in the petroleum supply chain, with a significant impact on consumer prices. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is empowered under Section 1B of the Energy Act to set, review, and approve contracts, tariffs and charges for common use of petroleum logistic facilities and petroleum products. The authority approved the current pipeline tariff effective February 2020 for the tariff control period 2019-20 to 2021-22. The KPC tariff is divided into two components. We do have the pipeline tariff and the storage levy. In setting the pipeline tariff, EPRA uses the revenue requirement methodology to compute the pipeline transmission tariff, and this takes into consideration the regulatory asset base, the rate of return, expenses of both operating and maintenance tax in the form of actual liabilities arising in that tariff period, depreciation in form of charge for the tariff period, and approved revenue addition to meet debt obligations. Ladies and gentlemen, KPC in January 2022 submitted an application to the authority for review of the pipeline transportation and secondary storage for the subsequent tariff control period. So this tariff they are making is for the pipeline transportation and secondary storage. Further, KPC submitted an amended tariff application in July this year to amend storage charges paid by oil marketing companies. This takes into consideration capital expenditure, provision for capacity enhancement of the eastern, that is the Mombasa-Nairobi section of the pipeline, and the proposed revised throughput forecast. The revised charges are expected to run for 3 years until 2025. EPRA had in August last year reduced KPC's cumulative handling and storage charges by about 14%, from 616 shillings to 427 shillings per cubic meter of fuel in a bid to reduce the cost of palm prices, something that strained KPC's bottom line. This was expected to increase to 468 shillings from July 2022 and further by 30 shillings from July 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, today's workshop seeks to receive feedback and comments from you on KPC's amended application. KPC's pipeline transportation and bulk storage services are integral in the actualization of the security of supply for petroleum products in the country. It is imperative, therefore, that this infrastructure is kept at the highest possible standards at all times. In our role as the regulator, to ensure that there is balance between maintaining high levels of quality and efficiency in this sector, keeping the prices of the final products within the reach of the ordinary citizens is very critical to us. It is for this reason that we are here today to deliberate on and achieve a middle ground where the views of all parties involved will be accommodated before the actual tariff is approved. So as we stand here, we have been in the last 2 weeks or so been discussing the application, because not a decision has been made at the moment. Also the final decision will be made in the coming week after today's workshop. It is for this reason that we are here today, to deliberate and achieve a middle ground where the views of all parties involved will be accommodated before the actual tariff is approved. KPC, to get enough revenue to maintain their commendable level of excellence, and members of the public as well as other players in the petroleum subsector to get sustainable prices for petroleum products. In the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that the expertise and experience in this room will help us achieve a consensus that will be beneficial to both the consumer and KPC. I therefore welcome you to freely share your thoughts and the recommendations as we engage with one another. I wish you constructive discussions. So that is the speech of the Director General, EPRA. And just to add, the reason we are here is because of KPC. As stakeholders, the most important thing for us is to give objective comments and the questions that will be able to progress this tariff approval to the next level as we take it to the board. So I would like to invite David Kariuki, so that you invite Wawero to invite David Kariuki. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John. Good morning again, everyone. Hamjambo watu wa Mombasa. My name is Wawero. I work for APRA, and I think if you were listening keenly to the Director General's remarks, then probably my job is very short. I think everything has been said. First of all, this is a requirement under the Energy Act, whereby we are required to solicit for views across the industry. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been to the west of Kenya. We've had very good consultations. We've come back. We had a very fruitful engagement, if you've seen in the newspapers, in Nairobi. That's 2 days ago. This was supposed to happen on Monday, and it was postponed for logistical reasons, but we're here today. So I think for me, my job is just to say that we have just one objective, and that objective is to air your views. I was listening to the introductions as they were being made. I can see we have quite a presence from the industries. We have transporters. We have, of course, other members from storage facilities, from oil marketing companies, and we are happy to have you here. And I just want to say, to echo one thing that was said in the Director General's speech. There's two sides to a tariff. On one side, you have keeping prices low for Mwananchi, which is a very key objective for us as empowered, not only by the Energy Act 2019, but also by the Constitution. And on the other side, we have provision of quality services, which means we need to give Kenya Pipeline Company the latitude, in terms of financial latitude, to be able to provide quality services and quality products. For them to be able to provide quality services and quality products, they need to be able to have that capital to spend. So as you've heard, the tariff that is being applied for is running for the next 3 years. They submitted an application in January and then came back in July, amending that application because they want to enhance the pipeline on the eastern side of the country. They want to enhance capacity. They will tell you why they want to enhance that capacity. They will tell you why they want those extra funds. So that's all the details of that we will leave to Kenya Pipeline. And also I notice we have some transporters in the business. There's a split. There's a split between the pipeline levy, the pipeline tariff, and the storage levy, which previously was combined, but the tariff now is being unbundled. So I think that's also a key point that will be explained. And lastly, I just want to say that it's very important to hear your views, because we're required to before we go and finalize the application. Today is not our day. Today is not the regulators' day. Today is the stakeholders' day. So take this opportunity, because you might not have one in the future. Once this stakeholder is finished and the application comes to our desk, then that is the end, and EPRA shall make the relevant conclusions. So please, once again, my emphasis is please feel free to air your views, and let's have ataendeleza hii program. Asante.
Asante sana Bwana Wawero na representative wa Director General. Mimi naitwa David Kariuki, na najua wengi wenu tuweza kukutana na wao hapa kwa majadiliano kama hayo. Nafikiri tulikutana wakati mwingine tukijadiliana kuhusu, ilikuwa ni regulations nafikiri. Na kama mlivyoambiwa ni kwamba tuko na nafasi sahihi ya kuweza kujadiliana mambo yanayohusiana na hii tunaita pipeline tariff, ambayo ni the cost of transportation of products from this point to the hinterland and the storage therein. we have been given an application by KPC. We at EPRA have been given an application, and our job is to first ask ourselves, is this application sound? What does it represent? Are there good things that comes out of the application? And eventually, if there are good things that are going to come out of the application, how do we finance them? So our responsibility is therefore to listen to that application and then to seek your views on the application, because the law requires of us to do that. It is because the law says you cannot approve anything that costs someone resources and time and you have not asked his views on it. So our responsibility is to seek your views on that application. Kwa hivyo tutawapatia nafasi KPC waweze kutuambia ni nini ambacho wanatuuliza sisi EPRA na ambacho wanauliza pia wananchi. Wakifanya hivyo, then nyinyi mtasema kama mnaona kama maoni ambayo wanawapatia ni maoni mazuri, kama mnakubaliana na hiyo application, ama kama mko na kuna jambo ambalo mnaona lina kasoro. Kama kunalo mnaona lina kasoro, itakuwa ni jukumu lenu kusema hiyo kasoro ni gani na njia ambayo mnaweza kuona ama kutupatia ndio tuweze kusuluhisha kasoro ambayo mtakuwa mmeiona. So from the EPRA side, as it has rightly been pointed out by the Director General and also by Bwana Waweru, the man in charge of pricing, EPRA today is only a listener, actually just a facilitator of this discussion between KPC and the stakeholders of the coastal part of this country. After the discussions, then we will go and deliberate on everything that has been given to us by the stakeholders vis-a-vis the application itself, and then ask ourselves, what are the merits of the application in view of the stakeholder views? What is it that we will accept? What is it we cannot accept? And eventually, what is it that we would have to approve? That is a procedure, that is what the law requires of us, and that is precisely what we intend to do. As a matter of procedure, we will ask KPC at this stage to come and make that application, provide to us the highlights of the application. In normal circumstances, we would break for tea now and then come and listen to the application after the tea. But I think in the interest of time, we will first get the application presented to us. Usually it's a good opportunity for you to also go and look through what you have been given as an application, and then and possibly even make consultations with the institutions you represent, so that after the tea break you are in a position to give a position that is informed and consulted, so that you give a position that represents the interest you represent. Accordingly, we will ask KPC to come and make that application. But before the application, we will ask the team leader of KPC to come and make opening remarks, and then invite the presenter of the application to do the same. Accordingly, I want to invite Zilpa Bongo to come and make the opening remarks from the KPC side, and also invite the representative of KPC to come and make the application. Zilpa.
Thank you very much, Team EPRA. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the team from the coast region. We have been across the country in Kisumu, Eldoret, Nakuru, Nairobi, and now we are here with you to hear what you may feel are of concern to you about our tariff application. We anticipate and hope that you will be open and honest, as APRA has requested you to be, because ultimately this process is objectively to ensure that the cost of fuel to you, the Mwananchi, is prudent, and that you actually have efficient access to that petroleum product through the infrastructure that we are proposing in our application. The team will not take too much of your time, but we anticipate that you will be keen and interested, because being a technical aspect, petroleum transportation and pipelines, it requires a little bit more indulgence with the content for you to be able to follow through. So whatever will not be clear, please ask your questions. We will be very happy to clarify in the simplest of terms. Do not worry about any jargon or any numbers. They are presented in the simplest possible way that we could articulate this issue. We also hope that out of this engagement, you will be able to feel free to interact further with Kenya Pipeline Company and the regulator, because this discussion and these conversations do not end today. So on that note, I would like to I'll alert you to the team that is present today and who will be fielding the questions and engaging with you. We'll start with our General Manager Finance, Pius Mwendwa, who's here. We also have James Karanja representing our Operations and Maintenance function. We have Simon Sang, who is representing the Marketing and Business Development function. We have Lokoyan, Mr. Lokoyan. I never remember your English name. Robin Lokoyan, who is a strong man in charge of partly the numbers as well as assisting our corporate planning manager, Ms. Elizabeth Akinyi, who will be handling the tariff application presentation, after which any of us will field the questions that you have. I hope I have not left out anyone else from KPC. And that will be the team that is here with you. So on that note, thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome Elizabeth to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zilpa. Thank you, EPRA, for the opportunity that you've accorded KPC to present our tariff to the stakeholder. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As has been stated, my task is just to present to us the application for pipeline tariff review that KPC submitted to EPRA. We'll just give the highlights, and to do so, my presentation will cover three broad areas. We look at KPC, the system itself, and the services that we offer for which we are seeking a tariff review. We'll then look at what the current tariff is. Then lastly, we'll dive into what the application is all about. In terms of KPC overview, as we probably all know, KPC was incorporated in 1973. It is fully owned by the government of Kenya. We started commercial operations in February 1978 when the first petroleum pipeline was constructed. That is the line that runs from Mombasa to Nairobi, the very first one, which we refer to as line 1. Our core mandate is to transport, store and deliver petroleum products into the hinterland. We serve not only the Kenyan market, but we also do serve the landlocked countries of Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi to some extent. Then we also serve Eastern DRC and South Sudan. Our network is as shown on the screen. As I indicated, the very first line ran from Mombasa to Nairobi. We then had an extension from Nairobi to Eldoret and to Kisumu. So currently what we have is one line that is running from Mombasa to Nairobi, then parallel lines from Nairobi to Eldoret and Kisumu. We used to have two lines prior to the year 2020. That was the initial line that was constructed in 1978 and the new line that we commissioned in 2018. But the old line had to be retired because it had outlived its design life and was no longer safe to operate. So as it is now, we only have one line on the eastern section. We do have storage depots distributed across the country. In Mombasa, we have a depot in KPRL and the Kipevu oil storage facilities and the Jet A1 depot at the Moi International Airport. In Nairobi, we have the depot at industrial area, and we have the depot at Embakasi that handles Jet A1. Then we have Nakuru depot, Kisumu and Eldoret depot. At those particular depots, we do have facilities for loading products into the trucks, or rather transferring the products to the OMCs. And at the airport, we have what we call the hydrant system, through which we are able to load the aircrafts directly. In Kisumu, we have the oil jetty that was recently constructed that is supposed to enable transportation of petroleum products via water transportation into Uganda. I'll share a little bit more of the details in terms of the capacity that we have because it impacts on our tariff. As I had indicated, we currently have only one line running from Mombasa to Nairobi, and that is what we refer to as line 5. That line can be able to carry 8.3 million cubic meters per annum if it is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But as we all know, that is not possible because there are times that we have downtimes, especially where we have issues around the maintenance of the line or where we have power outages. From Nairobi to Eldoret, we have two lines. We have what we refer to as line 2 that was constructed in 1994. And then we have what we refer to as line 4, which was constructed in 2011. Now line 2 can deliver 1.8 million, while line 4 can deliver 2.9 million cubic meters per annum. Then we have the line to Kisumu that branches from a place called Sinendet near Molo. That line, that section has two lines. We have line 3 and line 6. Line 3 that was constructed in 1994 and line 6 is the recent one constructed in 2016. Now line 3 can deliver 915,000 cubic meters per annum, while line 6 can deliver 2.4 million cubic meters per annum. Now these are installed capacities. Those are the capacities that we currently have. But for line 4 and line 6, there is a transport even more fuels. In terms of storage facilities, the gross active storage that we own or manage is 887,000 cubic meters. About half of that is in the coast region, and those are in the Kipevu oil storage facility and Kenya Petroleum Refineries Limited, and the depots, and these particular depots are mainly used for receipt of petroleum imports. We use them to receive the products that are being discharged from the vessels. We do have our depots, like I had mentioned, in the hinterland. In Nairobi, we have around 232,000 storage capacity. At JKIA, we have 54,000. Nakuru we have 30,000 storage capacity, Kisumu 45,000, and in Eldoret 48,000 cubic meters storage capacity. Now the western, or rather the hinterland depots, apart from Nairobi, where we recently enhanced the capacity to 232 from 100,000, the other depots like Nakuru, Kisumu, and Eldoret, and even JKIA, those are the storage facilities that were constructed for Nakuru, Kisumu, and Eldoret, constructed in 1994, and for JKIA that was constructed in 1978. So as you can see, we've not done much in terms of adding onto the storage capacity in the hinterland. Product delivery from our depots to the OMCs or to the petroleum marketers is through transfers to the distribution depots in Nairobi. What we have in Nairobi is that the oil companies have their own depots, and we normally transfer their products to them, and they then load the trucks from their own depots. In Western Kenya, we have truck loading facilities. In Kisumu, we have a rail loading facility. We also have a rail loading facility in Eldoret, but it's not very active at the moment. We have the hydrant system, airport hydrant system in Embakasi and Moi Airport. Now our clients, mainly we transport the products for the OMCs, that is the oil marketing companies, who have signed a transport and storage agreement with us. So that is the system that we have, and as you can see, the services that we offer are mainly transportation, storage, and handling of products. So in terms of tariff, where are we at the moment? As has been said, the current prevailing tariff is the tariff that was approved in February 2020 and was effective 15th of February 2020. It covered a 3-year period. In 2019-20, the tariff was at 5 shillings and 07 cents per cubic meter per kilometer. In the next year, it was at 4.81, and currently we are at 4.61 Kenya shillings per cubic meter per kilometer. Now that was a composite tariff, and it was a per kilometer tariff. Now one of the tasks that we were given as KPC was to unbundle that tariff so that there was transparency in terms of calculation of the tariffs for the various services that we offer. That was done, and we went back to just try and figure out what the unbundled tariff would have been from 2019-20, and there are, as displayed on the screen. What we see is that for the transportation component, as of 2019-20, the unbundled transportation tariff should have been at 3 shillings and 91 cents per cubic meter per kilometer. It remains a per kilometer tariff because it's all about transportation. But the storage tariff is now a per cubic meter tariff, because storage really is not it's not a distant issue. It's really just looking at the facility that we have and looking at the costs that are incurred in managing those particular depots. So we've removed what used to be there in terms of looking at storage also as a per kilometer tariff, but now it is purely cubic meter, designated as a cubic meter tariff. So those are the figures that we have as of now. The transportation tariff is at 3 shillings and 56 cents, while the per cubic meter per kilometer, while the storage tariff is at 696.83 cents per cubic meter. When we went round in 2019, as we were reviewing the tariff then, one of the issues that came out was the concern around our efficiency, especially loading of trucks, loading and evacuation of trucks. So as KPC, we went back, and what we've done is to address the loading and evacuation process, and that necessitated integration of systems between KPC and KRA. It's a project that is ongoing. We have been able to achieve phase 1 graded. Now in terms of capacity, we've also upgraded loading or rather evacuation facilities at the Western Kenya depots in Eldoret and Kisumu. We've put up more bottom loading facilities. We're in the process of ensuring that we have more of those, because we have determined that bottom loading is more efficient than top loading. That has enabled us to actually load more trucks in a day. Then the major really project that or investment within the petroleum supply chain that we are all aware of, especially those of us in Mombasa here, is the Kipevu Oil Terminal, the new Kipevu Oil Terminal that was constructed by KPA and which is being operated by KPC. Now this terminal has is really a game changer for the region, because we are moving from a terminal where we used to be able to only receive one vessel at a time. Now with the new terminal we should be able to receive 3 vessels at a time, discharging different products into our facilities at the coast region. So what is it that we are asking for as KPC? As has been said, the tariff control period for the tariff that was approved in 2020 has come to an end. We've had to go back and look at where we are in terms of our needs and made the proposal for the new tariff. The application, as has been said, was submitted on 18th of January, but we had to go back, relook once again at the numbers, and we submitted an addendum on 18th of July 2022. Now the addendum incorporated the improvements that are required to ensure that we are able to continue providing the services efficiently and effectively for the entire region, and that necessitated enhancement of the capacity of our eastern section of the pipeline. We also had to look at our throughput or the volumes that we can be able to deliver from Mombasa to Nairobi, and we had to adjust the numbers accordingly. Now in terms of tariff principles, that has not changed from what we had in 2019. As has been said, the tariff is based on revenue requirements, and for us to determine that, we have to look at the working capital. There are some principles that EPRA has put in place to ensure that that the tariff that eventually is proposed or is put in place is one that ensures that it is really an optimal tariff. So what we have been allowed by EPRA is to have a working capital that consists of cash that is determined as 45 days of operating and maintenance expenditure, and the inventory that is determined as 2% of the fixed assets. Now the capital structure that we have been allowed is 20% equity and 80% debt. In terms of the return on equity, what we have been allowed by the regulator is 10.5% return on the equity portion of our capital before tax. Then we have the cost of debt, which is allowed on the debt portion of the capital, and that is pegged on the running loan, the interest on the running loan. And currently we do have a running loan, and whose interest is based on 3 months LIBOR and a margin of 4.5%. Now, for us to determine the tariff, the model requires 3 critical inputs, and the inputs are really the asset base that we are talking about. Then we have the operating and maintenance expenses as being projected, and lastly we have the throughput that is being projected. Now in terms of the regulated asset base, we see ourselves growing from 85.9 billion Kenya shillings to 104 billion Kenya shillings by the year 2024-25. And this is because of the investments that we have lined up, as has been read in the DG's speech, and also as we have indicated in the previous slide. We intend to enhance the capacity of the eastern section of the pipeline. We also have a few other investments lined up. We have a need to increase our storage capacity in Western Kenya, and also to upgrade the flow rate for line 4. Now we did unbundle the assets to show what the transportation assets are, and we were able to determine that for transportation purposes, the assets that we have, 77% of the assets that we have are used for transportation. Then we look at the operating expenses. In terms of the operating expenses, as an organization, we do place emphasis on efficiency and cost control, and we are asking to be allowed a 6% growth in OPEX. As we all know, we too as an institution, we've been hit by the inflation rate and also the exchange rate, because some of the items that we use in the maintenance and even operation of our system are really sourced from outside the country, and they are dollar denominated. So when the dollar behaves as it has been, where the Kenya shillings has been weakening, then we as an organization are also impacted. In terms of throughput, we see a situation where for the domestic market there is demand. We project that the demand is going to grow. We estimate that currently the year 2021-22 the demand was at about 5.7, and that it's going to grow up to 6.6 million cubic meter per annum. And we from our analysis project that in spite of the challenges that the region has faced, that has led to a drop, that has impacted the demand, we are still optimistic that because of the projected growth in the economy, we are optimistic that demand is going to grow, and therefore we have projected a growth in our model. We only serve the hinterland. The pipeline serves the hinterland, and that is why we are saying we had to remove the coast, take out the demand for the coast region, and what we are reflecting therefore is a demand in the hinterland which is expected to be at 5.89 million cubic meters in the year 2024-25. We handle products for the landlocked countries, as we had mentioned, and we see a situation where the imports for those particular countries that come in through the port of Mombasa is going to grow. There have been some challenges in the last financial year, but we believe that because this particular corridor, the northern corridor, has always been deemed as efficient and more cost effective, we expect that with the election a maximum of 8.3 if it operates 24 hours, 7 days a week. But because of need for downtime, for maintenance, and probably for due to other external factors, then we estimate that we should be able to move 8.12 million cubic meters per annum for the next 2 years, until we improve on the capacity of that section, when we then see the throughput growing to 8.6 million in the year 2024-25. So what then is the tariff? With those inputs and the tariff principles that we have talked about, we see ourselves landing at 5.22 Kenya shillings per cubic meter per kilometer for the composite tariff for the year 2022-23, which is an increase of about 13% from what the current tariff is. That is the tariff of 4.61 per cubic meter per kilometer. That tariff will grow from 5.22 to 5.53 in the next year, and that is the year 2023-24. And we expect it to drop in the year 2024-25 mainly because of the way the inputs play out. We expect that by that time we'll have been done with the investment, but then we also expect that there will be a growth in throughput. So the drop is because of the growth in throughput. We have unbundled that tariff, and where we are at is that in the year 2022-23, the current year, we should be at a tariff of 3.87 Kenya shillings per cubic meter per kilometer for the transportation component, and 874.4 Kenya shillings per cubic meter for the storage and handling component. That will grow in the subsequent year, but then drop in the year 2024-25, especially for the transportation component, which will drop to 4.06 per cubic meter per kilometer. The storage component does not drop because the projects for the lighter projects of storage capacity enhancement are still going, will still be going on. So what does that mean for the depots? That is as presented on the screen. We see a situation where in Nairobi the depot rates are going to go up from 2,074 Kenya shillings per cubic meter to 2,617. Then we see an increase in Nakuru from 2,853 to 3,271 in this current year. Then we see Eldoret going up from 3,669 per cubic meter to 3,957 per cubic meter. We see Kisumu going up from 3,664 to 3,953. And then lastly, Konza being the beneficiary here, because we take out the storage component that they used to bear before. And now the tariff is going to drop from 1,761 to 1,479. So those are the tariffs for the first year of the tariff control period. Of course, then they grow in the next year, and then and in the subsequent year of 2024-25. As you can see, one would ask why Nairobi tariff seems to be going up by a larger percentage than Eldoret and Kisumu. It is all because of the unbundling process. As it is, because the tariff previously was a composite tariff, then the western depots used to have the transportation component being significantly higher than the eastern depots. So with the harmonization of the storage component, then we expect therefore that the eastern depots would have a higher percentage growth than the western depots. We have looked at what this then means for us as consumer. We are all consumer of the various petroleum products, and if you look at the tariff as it is currently, it will mean that in Nairobi we increase the pump price by 54 cents per litre. It will impact Nakuru pump price by 42 cents per litre, then impact Eldoret and Kisumu by 29 cents per litre. We've also looked at the contribution of the tariff to the overall pump price, and if you just focus on super, you will realize that in Nairobi the pipeline tariff is going to contribute 1.3% of the total pump price. That is if you assume the current pump prices. In Nakuru it contributes 1.8%. Eldoret and Kisumu it contributes 2.3%. Then we've lastly done a comparative analysis to just check that we remain competitive. What we notice is that when you compare with road, which is the second option, is the other option for petroleum products transportation. If you compare with the lowest rate that we know of, that is 6.7 Kenya shillings per kilometer per cubic meter that is offered to the oil marketers, then our tariff of 3 shillings and 87 cents per cubic meter per kilometer will be 40% lower. We've also checked with the transit rates because we do know that we need as a country to remain competitive, to ensure that the Northern Corridor remains competitive and that we are able to attract business. So we've looked at our tariff. If you bring in products through the KPC facilities at the coast, you transport by the pipeline and then deliver to, say, Kampala from Eldoret to Kisumu by road, then you land the product in Kampala at $74. But if you pick the product in Mombasa and you transport it by road, then the landed cost in Kampala will range between $80 and $92, depending on which facility you are picking the products from in the coast region. So for Mombasa stakeholders, that is what we are proposing, that is what we have submitted to the regulator, requesting that they relook at our tariff and give us that adjustment. And we welcome your views and your bill so that we can be able to then allow the regulator do what it needs to do. Thank you very much. I hand over to David.
Kwa hivyo watu wa Pwani mmesikiza yale ambayo tumeambiwa. I think that was an extremely concise and precise presentation. You know, when you have a presentation of that size, you need to make sense out of all those numbers. You just need to know what are they telling us. And I think what you need to know in a nutshell is very simple. One, there is something we call the regulated asset base. That means the amounts of assets at KPC that attract a return on investment. And what KPC has told us, during this tariff control period or during the 3 years, that will change from today's 85.95, about 86 billion, to 104 billion or 104.4 billion. So that's an adjustment of the regulated asset base. And it will be a product of basically two things: that there will be a new pipeline from Mombasa to Nairobi. Call it line 7 or whatever it will be, but a new line from Mombasa to Nairobi, whose purpose is twofold. First of all, to create what we call a redundancy, or an alternative line if line 1 breaks. But most importantly, to actually increase throughput, or the amount of products transported by pipeline from Mombasa to Nairobi. They will also be expanding the flow rate in the western part of the country and the storage in the western part of the country. So the storage in Kisumu and the storage in Eldoret. So those two things plus the pipeline are the ones that increase the regulated asset base from 86 billion to 104 billion. That's what KPC is telling us. Then they're also telling us that because of that expansion, of course, if you expand, operation and maintenance of these assets will also go up, but they have said that then they have moderated it by only 6% annually. So there will be a 6% increase annually in the operation and maintenance costs, and over the tariff control period, this will be adjusted from 11.5 billion to 13.36 billion at the end of the control period, or by 2024-25 period. That is 6%. And over that period also, actually not over that period, we have been told that for the last several years they have been increasing efficiency of operations. Today it is at 94%, and they have promised to take it to 100% by removing the number of processes that you need to undertake before you can have your product removed from the system and taken to the consumer. So we expect that that will be 100% during this tariff control period, hopefully. From the 94%, wamesema kwamba they have reduced the number of stages you need to go through in processing a product from 14 stages to 4 stages. I don't know how many, when they are at 100% they will be. Maybe they will only be 3 or 1. I don't know. Then the other issue that is important to note is the demand. Demand is very important because demand is the one that determines the price. Demand is growing, and the demand is growing both locally and internationally, or where we deliver our products in the region. And that one is growing from today's 8.82 million meter cubed to 10.4 or to 10.04 million meter cubed. That is the demand. But not all these products are transported by the pipeline. So today, the amount that they are able to transport, which we are calling throughput, is at 7.6 million meter cubed. Will grow to 8.12 meter cubed next year and the following year. And then in the last year, because we will have increased the capacity for throughput, that will now become 8.62 million meter cubed. So you'll be asking then what happens to the other segment. That is a segment that is transported by road or by other means, not necessarily road, but by other means. In other words, we are not able to transport all our products by pipeline. There is a segment that has to be transported by other means, and in this case, we are saying the more we expand our pipeline infrastructure, the more we are able to handle the growing demand. And this is a good thing because I think at the end of the presentation, KPC also tells us that pipeline transportation is always the cheapest. You cannot compare it with any other form of transportation. We have also been told that the composite tariff or the total tariff that will now be charged today it is at 4 shillings and 61 cents, and this will grow by the end of the period to 5 shillings and 50 cents. It will initially grow by 13%, then by another 6%, and then on the last year of the tariff control period, when the pipeline is completed, then the adjustment will reduce by 0.5%. Reduce. So essentially, it's an indication that if we actually expand, build line 7, or that. And then lastly, I think for the last point, there is good news and bad news for the people of Coast relative to the people in the hinterland, because for the people in the Nairobi, they will get the greatest hit on this tariff adjustment because the pump price increases by 54 cents. For the people of Nakuru, it increases by 42 cents. But for the people of Nakuru and basically the western part, so Nakuru, Kisumu, that one increases only by 29 cents. What about for the people of Mombasa? I think that one does not change, does it? And that's the good news. In other words, the people of Mombasa tariff adjustment at the pump is not going to make a difference because there are no significant investments being made in this part of the world. So it remains as it has been. And that probably is a good part about this adjustment for the people of this part. for the rest of the people because they need to see improvements in the way the product is delivered there, then they will have to bear the cost as I have indicated, 54 cents for Nairobi, 42 cents for Nakuru, and 29 cents for both Kisumu and Eldoret. Sasa hiyo ndio summary ya hiyo taarifa yote, si ndio? Hayo mengine yote yalikuwa tu ni mambo ambayo mengine tunajua na mengine ni ya kampuni, but those are the adjustments basically contained in this application. So when we will break for tea shortly, when we come back, then we will be inviting you to make comments in relation to those issues. It's good to confine yourself to the 5 issues, but we will be happy to also respond to all other issues that you may feel are bothering you because the regulator is here. So you can ask regulatory questions and very many questions to the applicant KPC relating to this application. I want to thank you very much for listening to us and to particularly listen to the application by KPC, and hopefully when we come back you should be having many issues that you would want responded to. In the meantime, I want to invite you for a cup of tea. I think the cup of tea, where is the cup of tea? At the ground floor kwa restaurant. Tuchukue dakika 20 peke yake tafadhali, ndio tuweze kurudi na kumaliza ambayo tumekuwa tukijadiliana in good time. Thank you very much and welcome for that cup of tea. I don't know whether there are still some people out there, but would like to resume our after tea session. And just before we left, we had listened to the KPC application, and we agreed that when we come back, we will be coming back to then respond to whatever issues that you may be having and which you would like responded to with respect to this application. I also indicated that it is also a good opportunity for you, the stakeholders, to engage with the regulator should there be issues you also felt that they need to be responded to, particularly on the issue of storage, transportation, and handling of petroleum products in this country, which may be relevant to this region. We did indicate also that we have engaged with stakeholders across the country, and there have been lots of issues, pertinent issues, that have been raised with respect to both this application and other issues incidental to the application. And therefore, I will be giving this opportunity to you stakeholders to raise whatever concerns you have on the application. Please indicate where you come from, and that is your name and the institution you come from, so that it is very important for our record to know who asked what and whether your issue is responded to. And I will, yes, my brother from, I think you're from, all right.
Morning. Thank you for having all stakeholders here. I was okay with the presentation by Madam Elizabeth until she touched on transporters. Us as transporters, Mr. Kinyo, how are you? Us as transporters are cheaper than the pipeline. She indicated that pipeline is cheaper. However, when you look at $4.61 and when it reaches Nairobi, it has to be locally delivered. That's another $4 per meter cube. It's about $9. So as a transporter, I can offer door-to-door services. However, the pipeline is important for our country, and constructing a second pipeline is equally important when it breaks down. However, it will be very unfair for her to touch on transporters. If there was no government instruction to use the pipeline by force, then you'll see many vehicles on the road delivering to stations from Mombasa at a very cheaper rate. Anyways, I was not standing up to mainly criticize on that part on the who is cheaper. I am here to make a statement to Mr. Kinyo, who's always listened to us. Today the fuel prices are very expensive for everyone, and the reason why the bread and the milk is very expensive on the table is because the fuel prices are high. However, a transporter is facing the same issue as everyone else, and the transport rate has not changed for many years. I think over 8-10 years, and it's the cost of diesel has never been so high. We've made our our request for a review, which happened just before Corona, I think, Mr. Kinwa, And since then, things have been very tough for the local, what you call, transporter. When you look at the local transporter, it's an industry that is vibrant, it is hard-working, it makes sure that it's abiding by the EPRA, continuous EPRA, what you call, improvements when it comes to the standard of transport, road transport for fuel. And that comes with premium costs. Safety comes with an extra cost. If you want to compare a normal transporter and a fuel transporter, there's a very big difference. The fuel transporter incurs a lot of cost on training, on the gadgets, on the vehicles, and the way we operate, as you know, is not beyond 6 p.m. in the evening, while the other transporter could do day and night transportation. In short, it's been too long since we've been given a chance to relook at the rates, and I just want to keep it very simple. We request Mr. Kinyua to look into that, and we invite also KPC to come to that forum too. Thank you very much.
You couldn't have been more clearer. So I think you have raised two issues. So the issue, one of them is the comparability of transportation by pipeline relative to road. And I think the only issue the KPC team will want to respond to is whether your pipeline tariff and the comparability also takes into consideration the last mile costs from pipeline to delivery of these products. Because if it is from hinterland to the storage facility, wherever it is, it may not be the entirety of the cost. So basically a statement on comparability. But I think the more fundamental issue is to EPRA, and I'll be directing that question to Edward to say something on whether there are any plans to review transport costs within the pricing formula in view of the current high cost of transportation. And possibly you may want to say something about the upcoming cost of service that is in the pipeline, and whether it will be considering a review of that particular element, or whether you have any plans to review the transport costs before the cost of service study. Yes, Margaret.
Mine is just a few comments and then maybe some suggestions. Number one, I think the presentation was concise and aligned to the application because all the data was there, and in addition to the technical details, I think it was presented in a clear manner. Number two, when you look at the vision of Kenya Pipeline, it says Africa, Premier, Oil and Gas. I'm just using what we were given. So my suggestion to the esteemed KPC is to see whether they can start having something on gas, so that the vision is not textbook. Like in this forum, they can tell us something about Turkana or what we went to do in Qatar for LNG. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, when you talk of Africa, in Nairobi we are taught of the devolution. Probably in future in other forums they can also talk about geographical expansion, which will be in line with their vision. which they have given us, and I think it's an excellent vision. Then the other thing I was saying is, in future, if possible, the statistics can have some comparative data related to other pipelines. For example, in Africa, because when you say you are premier in Africa, then we must see some quantitative or qualitative. Why that vision is there? So that is that. The other thing is on EPRA. This is kind of a small commendation. I don't know whether I'm qualified, but I'm saying the way you are engaging us, I think is good. Yes, it is aligned to the Constitution, but I think you are taking it like a personal duty, which is very encouraging to us. And even given my what he has said, that engagement is very good. So I'll also request the word public participation, because they are rare. We also have officer engagement, so that when we are appraising our bosses, we have cleaned up the issues at our level, one-on-one. Because as in the private sector, we think wildly. Then when you write, you are told this is maybe not according to regulation, it's like this. So I think, and I want us actually to say this is an existing, but we can enhance it. For the pipeline, they have the SCADA. We know what it is, but I don't know whether this Mwandwa, the GM, we went somewhere and we saw a pipeline which had figured it to serve it more in terms of measurements, control, and in fact with gains and losses. I'm relating that to efficiency, because Elizabeth was very categorical about efficiency. I think again SCADA can be used to enhance that efficiency, gains and losses. If you look at which you can get in Google, I think Kenya Pipeline is ahead of the pack in terms of gains and losses. They are at 0.6, Africa is 0.1. That's Europe, Africa into account the increment in LIBOR. And as you are aware, the LIBOR has transited to SOFR, that is secured overnight lending rate. So as we move forward, probably the 13% to secure KPC's business maybe have to be looked into that rate. Otherwise, with the diversification, I think Mwendwa is aware, we went to Malaysia, and that Petronas started 1974. They are now in that 4 countries, and their profit is more than the GDP of Kenya, which means KPC has a lot to achieve, and I think they are on the right track. When you read the literature of these successful companies, it boils down to fast decision making. Like now the line 7. The line 7, we pray that we just see it working. Maswali baadaye, because like in Malaysia, it is the Prime Minister who chairs the board of Petronas, so that the decisions which are made there are implemented. In other words, we are saying KPC is in the right track. They can achieve a lot with the support of EPRA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Clearly, you understand. I think I understand your background, and that helps. That helps. But you have raised very, very pertinent issues, particularly on the issue of the way we are dealing with engagement, segmenting our engagement to focus on the various groups, interest groups, other than just generalizing and talking about public participation. I think the issue here, and this one I think installed and the efficiencies therein, particularly with respect to assessment of gains losses. The issue of the LIBOR. Have we incorporated the variations in the LIBOR in our financial model? I think Manda, that one looks like it will be an issue. You say something about it. And the question of benchmarking with all comparative utilities is important, and which probably Zilpa can say something about, on how you are looking at yourselves relative to better performance and how you are engaging with those doing the same business. I think it's an important issue. There was an issue that came up, which I think it's important to say something about, on how we are dealing with gas. Are we really a premier petroleum and gas transportation facility? Well, I have not heard anything about gas. Maybe you say something about whether you have plans in place. To me, I think it's also very, very important for the public to get to understand, given that we have a lot of LPG issues, and which you probably may want to talk about. You will also talk about the issue of geographic expansion, basically KPC beyond Kenya, and not just KPC beyond Kenya, also KPC within Kenya, but not linear. So in other words, vertical and horizontal expansion of KPC and the plans within the strategic plan. And of course, you will also talk about the issue of comparative data with other pipelines. I think that we did say how you are benchmarking yourself with the rest. We have already said that Edward will be talking about the issue on transportation. I want to take one last question before we get a response. And a person who is ready with a question before we get responses to what has already been raised. Yeah? I know sometimes we usually have questions that are subsequent to answers. So I will first request for a response to the issues.
Thank you, David. Those are a number of concerns, but they've all been taken into account for your comfort. So we will start with the strategic ones, and then my colleague Karanja will handle SCADA and its efficacy in handling gains and losses. Pius, of course, will handle the LIBOR, which has changed to the overnight lending rate. I'll take the rest on behalf of the team. I know Elizabeth needs to catch her breath. So and then eventually reticulation into the other countries via truck. the costs are indeed cheaper by pipeline into Kampala when you do it from Mombasa. And that's just by nature of the operation. It's not by nature of anything. So the ultimate objective over time is for us to have invested in solid enough infrastructure for the next 30-year period that our tariff will progressively decrease as we work on more of the operations and maintenance aspects as opposed to construction, the heavy capital expenditure. Because when we build a pipeline, for instance, its economic life is about 30 years. So these heavy capital investments you're seeing now are because the first line that we built in 1978 has over time aged and has now been phased out. So when line 5 came in 2018, it was intended to serve for at least 3 decades. Unfortunately, with decommissioning of the line 1, we have then created a gap in terms of the infrastructure that's available and redundancy, because as you all know, the pipeline is pretty much the backbone of petroleum transportation in Kenya and in the region. So you will feel the impact of heavy capital expenditure now, but that will ease over time. So in the next tariff control period, the amounts that we're putting towards building our asset base will reduce, and the tariff will simultaneously reduce as well if you increase your throughput through the pipeline. So as Elizabeth explained, it's a function of throughput, the regulated asset base, that then ultimately contribute towards the output in terms of tariff. Now, I think what the transporters need to take out of all of this is that there's a place for road transportation. It's just a question of where are you picking that product from and where are you taking it to. Currently, we're not yet able to take the trucks away from the road into Rwanda and the DRC, because the costs are not yet cheaper, because pipeline has yet to get as close to those markets as it should. So your aim should be in looking at the whole value chain. Where do I place my truck, as opposed to competing or imagining that the pipeline infrastructure is aimed at that specific market, because it is not. It is mainly just aimed at ensuring petroleum products get to the customer at the cheapest price possible. So your level of competition will come from your level of your own efficiency, and eventually, as David alluded to, the devolution of pipelines was intended to move from Mombasa to Nairobi to Western Kenya only, and to spread into the various counties. That plan is still on course, but it is held in abeyance beyond 2025, because the other key projects that we're engaging in now, that we have explained to you, are more priority. So once that is done, then we will have the basis upon which we can build spur lines, or what we call ancillary pipelines, into those other counties. So you aim, as you rightly asked from the industry, the aim is to understand what KPC strategy is, and then to see where you plug in. In relation to the strategy as well, we talked of geographical expansion. That was and always remains a plan of the Kenyan economy, because you do appreciate that we are the leading corridor in transportation of goods and services to East and Central Africa. We currently serve Uganda, DRC, Rwanda, South Sudan, and to a small extent Tanzania. And we aim that those countries will increase over time, and the volume of product we take to those additional countries will also increase. But that requires that we invest. We cannot do it by just talking. So part of what is happening here is what is going to lead to that geographical expansion. So you, as an oil industry or interested stakeholders, should be I think continuing to assess those markets and seeing what relative strengths we have put in Kenya for you to then leapfrog into them. So Rwanda, for instance, is a market for you to watch. You will likely be able to export more product into it once more product comes into the pipeline through the expanded facility. The new jetty terminal here in Mombasa offshore, KOT2, is very critical to these operations we're talking about, because ultimately this pipeline will be feeding product that comes from the ships from KOT2 into the shore tanks in Mombasa. So Mombasa remains an extremely and most crucial port in Eastern Central Africa, and we are then pegging all plans at expanding capacity, not just from Mombasa to Nairobi, but from Nairobi to Western Kenya as well. So yes, the plans are on course. They are just have taken a step back in terms of priority because of the more critical projects. LPG and LNG also remain important to us. LPG is factored into what we call the KOSIF KPRL tariff. KOSIF is Capable Oil Storage Facility, the first one that we have of major storage in Mombasa, and that tariff is separate from this one, which is the transport, storage and delivery tariff from Mombasa to Western Kenya. The KOSIF tariff comes in for the storage facilities and interconnecting links before the product leaves Mombasa. That tariff is already at play. It's running for the next 3 years, having been approved last year. And it includes the LPG project that we're aiming at doing for delivery of products, bulk petroleum products. So we will have a storage facility that then you come and bring your trucks or your various rail wagons to then distribute to whichever location you would want. And the bulk facilities are planned for both Mombasa and Nairobi. On LNG, yes, it is, and the LPG component is intended to happen in 2 phases. So the infrastructure is expected to expand in 2 phases going into 2030, which is really the basis upon which our strategy is drawn as a company. LNG is factored as well into our strategy, where we're still in the process of feasibility studies and assessments. Tanzania is working closely with us based on the memorandum of understanding that their president signed with our outgoing president, and we anticipate that the issues around funding for the pipeline that's supposed to run from Tanzania to Kenya will be addressed, because those are still critical matters. Very high cost elements are included into it, and it will require very many stakeholders from the sector. So it's not a matter with just KPC alone, and it is being spearheaded by the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. In relation to comparison of costs and benchmarking with others in the industry, we do that all the time, and indeed in collaboration with the regulator. Transnet, in fact, just the other week, our MD and the team were at Petronas that you talk about. We have done a lot of activities in relation to pipelines in Australia and Canada as well. So that happens all the time, whether at desktop level or physically. We are not coming up with these tariffs out of a lack of comparison, because even the regulatory regime that we have developed, and EPRA will speak more to that, is out of a very researched process for them to come up with the framework that we use currently to build up our tariff. And each pipeline, we just want to let you know, runs differently. Some run solely as pipelines, some run as dedicated pipelines. Ours is unique because it is one pipeline carrying all the products at once, and where we are managing critical interfaces, what we call a multi-product system. And we are then connected to storage tanks and then also to loading facilities, which is quite unique. It's actually a very peculiar creature that we have in Kenya, one of the foremost in the world, and most people come to study it because they do not understand the kind of engineering we have employed to ensure you get quality products that is not contaminated and on time. So you really should pat yourselves on the back as a republic, because the thinking in 1974 that led to the construction of this facility was really visionary. And we anticipate that we, who are now tasked with the charge of developing the country into the future, carry it with the ambition that our founding fathers did, because there's a lot for us to do, and it will require bold strategies and policies. But KPC as a company has thought into the future, into electric vehicles, into liquefied petroleum gas outlets, into pretty much greening out the economy. And we just need the impetus coming from the markets and from the national government to enable us achieve them. But our strategy is extremely bold. In terms of benchmarking opportunities, yes, we do create them. In fact, the other day we had Russia, we had Malawi, there's always Ghana. Like, everybody's always a Kenya pipeline company. if not to study how we receive bulk petroleum products, they also come between ourselves, the Ministry and EPRA, to study the open tender system. So we have created a lot of mini KPCs and mini Kenyan systems in various countries, including Zambia, including Tanzania's bulk petroleum system that they run, including the Ghanaian system, which has also helped ours grow, but I think piggybacked on some of the learnings we have done on LPG and on our retail pricing. Rwanda as well has developed their benchmarks. They keep praising our regulatory authority because it did help them establish the price build-up upon which they use to price the finished products. So you can be proud. You may not see it, but your government is really foremost in Africa. And as we were told by our CS, we have a bold DNA as a country. Kenyans are just always inventive and creative, and we always want to break barriers and to disrupt. So on that note, I will then hand over to Pius, who will talk about LIBOR and the financial elements of it, and then we'll hand over to Karanja to finish off with SCADA, which is yet another great invention that we are implementing at KPC through the learnings we've had with Canada on the running of their pipeline.
Thank you Zilpa, habari zenu? Sijui kama nitazungumza Kiswahili ama nitazungumza or rather when we were seeking for the tariff, we just considered what we think is a rate that we can say is more, admissible. We didn't go for a very high rate, because if we went for the rates which my friend JK is mentioning, then it would have meant the tariff will be very high. So if you look at, like for instance, when we took the other facility, which is financing our line 5, when we took the LIBOR was at the rate of 0.2. The lowest it went is 0.11 in 2021 when we had the COVID. The highest that we saw during this period was about 2.9%. So what that tells you is the volatility of this rate, and you can't really fix it, and you say in a given time, like for instance now, of course it's not at 3.7, it's at 2.9. Probably the 3.7 is a projection or a forecast, but again you have to strike a balance, because today it's at 0.11, tomorrow it's at 2.9. So do you really want to go at the highest rate? And the answer is definitely no. So what we do as an organization is to monitor the rate, and then we ask ourselves, what is it that we can do to ensure that we mitigate any adverse effect of the growing of that rate? And some of the options we have are like hedging. We can go to a bank when we see the rate is taking a direction that is not very convenient for the organization and the country, and we go and insure against that rate. So we will not allow ourselves to go to those rates. And I think I was just checking, the highest it has ever gone, the LIBOR, was about 10%, and that was in the years 1989. Some of these rates are dictated by market dynamics, and like now as we move from LIBOR to the SOFR, we have more confidence, because the LIBOR, as it were, it used to be dictated by a few banks. They would sit somewhere in London and just discuss and agree on what rate they are going to charge, and it was like a cartel, I can tell you for free. And then again, it was also dependent on who is holding the power in the US. Is it the Democrat? Is it the Republic? So there were so many dynamics which will dictate the LIBOR. We have confidence that with the coming in of the SOFR, which is largely dictated by the transactions that are happening in the market, and more so because this is the overnight lending rates within the banks, I don't see it going to those very high levels. So in our model, I think we adopted 2.7, which is modest in my view, and then we observe it along the period. If we see the need for us to come in and mitigate that rate, then we shall do it. So I don't think there should be any cause of alarm, because we've been there, and as a company we are committed to ensure that we manage that rate. We even have options of going for a fixed rate. We don't have to all the time to go for a base rate plus LIBOR or SOFR. We can still go to the banks or the lenders and discuss at a very convenient rate, which is good for KPC and for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pius. I think and Zilpa for having done a good job. I think I'm only here to talk about SCADA, and for those that probably may not know what this animal is, SCADA is just an acronym for what we call System Control and Data Acquisition. That means it's a system we have employed in running our pipelines. The current SCADA we are using is one that was installed in the early 2000s, and then we upgraded it around 2013, 2014, thereabout, and now it's due for another upgrade. And this is just trying to address the issues that have been raised by JK, because SCADA then, for also helping those that are here to understand, it helps you run the pipeline remotely, ensuring that all parameters that require to be observed are kept within the required levels, monitoring pressures and monitoring all the pumps and their conditions, so that this in the overall helps improve the efficiency of running a pipeline. Now what we have done is that in the one that is going to be is currently being implemented, then we are adapting a new system that is going to help us with gain and loss, because that we shall be able to integrate together with another operating system we have in KPC called SAP. So using SAP and SCADA, we have the functionality of being able to manage our gain and losses that would normally be a headache to us. Think about putting a certain batch and you'll receive less than that batch in Nairobi. So that system is supposed to help us be able to monitor on a real-time basis what are the gains and losses that we are able to accrue even from this system. Overall, then, that is going to help us improve our efficiency of how we manage and run the pipeline. Further to that, also just what was alluded to by Zilpa, the team that went for benchmarking have confirmed to us that companies like Petronas have custom-made their own SCADA system that addresses matters to do with maintenance, matters to do with cleaning of the pipeline, internal cleaning of the pipeline, any defects that are arising, and that is something that we have been able to pick up. And as we continue modeling the current SCADA that is going to be implemented in KPC, then we already have some insights into what other companies are doing to improve their systems and models of running the pipelines. As Zilpa also mentioned, we are proud in the fact that we run a multi-product pipeline. That means diesel, kerosene, and super are all put in one pipeline. Many other countries would have separate pipelines for running each grade, but for KPC, we are able to put all those grades in one pipeline without compromising the quality of that. And so with the new SCADA system, then it's going to help us be able to track even the points when there's these interfaces whereby these two grades are coming close to each other, and manage them well by ensuring that the pressures are maintained well in the system. So I think this is part of what we are looking at enhancing and making sure that our efficiency, as was addressed by JK, is well managed, and that we manage the losses also very promptly to ensure we're delivering value for what we are putting in place. Thank you.
So, thank you. Good afternoon. I'll be answering question about the transport rate that was asked by one of the transporters, one of the biggest transporters that we have. Well, it's true that the transport rate, one of the variable factors is the diesel cost, because that's the primary transportation fuel. So we normally factor in our calculation, when we are changing the rate for transportation, diesel is a primary factor in that formula. So we have a cost of service study that was done in 2018, and in actual sense that cost of service study became implemented towards the end of 2018. Part of the things that were looked at were transportation, or this is the last mile distribution of petroleum, because we look at the importation process, we look at the storage, and handling at Mombasa, we look at the pipeline transportation to the hinterland, then we look at the storage in the secondary storage facilities, and then we also look at the transportation cost from the depot to the retail station. Bridging, I may not talk about it now because bridging has been scrapped from the year 2019 when Line 5 came on board. So the 20% bridging, the transportation from Mombasa to Nairobi by road, was removed. In 2018, the consultant who handled that study, they benchmarked not only with the countries in Africa but also elsewhere outside Africa. They found that the transportation rates we were giving to transporters was adequate, and there was no recommendation for changing that rate. However, they said that being a variable rate, it should be looked at every year or annually. So 2018, 2019, 2020, if we look at the cost of diesel in those years, because after implementation of COSOP, we were supposed to look at it maybe in 2019, 2020. The diesel cost was so low. You remember it's at that point that prices of petroleum products had gone so low, even towards when we were coming towards the COVID season, where prices dropped to the lowest level that we have seen. And to us, there was no need at that point to revise the transportation cost, because the factor that we have used, the cost that we have used in our formula was much, much higher. The problem has arisen towards 2021, when after recovery from COVID, prices went so high, and it's at that point that we have received the memoranda from the transporters to relook at the cost. And as a matter of fact, as a regulator, we had started the process of looking at reviewing that transportation cost. But something happened last year. You remember the famous Petroleum Products Taxes and Levies Amendment Bill, which was recommending again we slash that prices were so high, we slash margins for marketers, and transporters were not left out. So we decided to suspend the process pending the presentation of that bill to the Houses of Parliament. And in fact, we made a presentation, and I think transporters also made their presentation during the hearing of by the Houses of Parliament, the committees on finance and budgeting. They had requested transporters to make a presentation on the actual costs incurred during the distribution of these products. So that is where the process stopped. What we are planning to do now, because we don't think that that bill will progress, so we are planning to do a fresh cost of service study, which will happen beginning next year, and we believe that is the appropriate point at which now we can recommend for a change in the transportation and distribution cost. But again, we have also to be cognizant of the fact that if we set a very high diesel price, it is a very volatile market. The prices keep on coming up and down. So we don't also want transporters to be benefiting from a very high cost, and then the cost in the international markets will come down. You know, at the time when the costs come down, the transporters will continue enjoying as they had been enjoying in the 2 years I've talked about. So it's a delicate balancing act. However, I can promise the transporters that we are open. The only thing that we have seen is that we get memoranda from different people at the same time. Some of those figures that are presented to us are contradictory. So we would urge the transporters to have like a lobby, like the East African Petroleum Transporters, who can now consolidate those figures. The way industry works, industry has like supply coordination committee, where they get all their numbers to that central point. Those numbers are interrogated, and then they are passed to us, so that at least when we are interrogating those numbers, we don't start having contradictory opinions. So we would urge the transporters, since there's a lobby group for petroleum now, they can go through the IAPTA, so that once we get the consolidated number, we can be able to interrogate it and progress in the fastest and the shortest time possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our respondents, both from KPC and also Director Engineer Edward Kimwa. I hope the issue on the transportation costs has been answered satisfactorily. We will stakeholders that this is usually the best opportunity for you to not just get tease out issues that are of concern to the industry, but also provide us with potential solutions to the challenges therein. And the way you do that is to bring out the issues as they affect you now. And I've always encouraged people to not just raise an issue, but to raise a potential solution, because the best solutions lie with the players. If you are a transporter, you know what can work for you. If you are a retailer, you know where the shoe pinches. Tell us, what do you want us to do for you to make it a little more comfortable? Because we are a listening regulator, we will listen. If we think the solution is going to make your work easier, we will try as much as possible to adjust systems, as long as there are systems within the law to address your issue. The only issue we have always said is, whatever solution you provide us, let it be a solution that is covered within the law, because we only operate with three instruments: the Act, the Constitution, and the regulations. Those are the ones that allow us to operate, because even where we develop internal memos, internal manuals, they have also to be consistent with those three instruments. Yes.
My name is Simon, Kenya Pipeline. On the issue of transportation, I wanted to probably add to what the respondents have said, and to encourage the transporters. KPC is a complementary, the transporters complement KPC, because we only reach the end of the pipeline, and from there, transportation is provided by trucking. And as we look at KPC being a facilitator for competitiveness of Kenya in the region, we would like our transporters to also be competitive in the region. And for that purpose, when we go around looking at our market, we've discovered that in some other countries, especially like Tanzania, their trucks are made of aluminum, and their transportation tanks are aluminum, while in our country, some of the trucks are steel, which provides a difference when it comes to weights of those trucks. And therefore, the Tanzanians are taking away the market of trucking in the region because they can transport more to comply with the axle load limits than our transporters locally. So we encourage our transporters to also convert their trucks, move towards lighter modes like aluminium, so that you can be able to compete. The difference between a Kenyan truck and a Tanzanian truck is 9 meter cubed. The Tanzanians transport more 9 meter cubes than a Kenyan truck. And therefore, when they average their costs, they have lower cost of transport than ours, and therefore, in the export market, they get more business because everyone wants to cut cost of transport. And that will also help us in this country. I think that is one of the issues that I didn't want to let go. And KPC always strives to, make the cost of business cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that comes in very handy by Yusuf and other transporters. The issue is assist the utilities and the regulator to help you, because sometimes we are uncompetitive because we are not looking around us and asking ourselves who else is our competitor. We are not competing internally. Internally, we should be helping each other to be able to deliver on our mandates. Our competition is out there, and our competition, we don't have interventions against them. Our interventions are right here. This is the place where we need to then think together to be able to provide those solutions. Do we have another person with a last comment as we move towards completing our discussions today? Yes, my brother.
Thank you. Sorry, my voice is a bit hackled. Mine is just a request to the applicant to provide us with the necessary paperwork so that we can be able to interrogate what they want. Otherwise, now we are just listening. We don't know what to go back to and analyze what they are asking for, and all that's not being fair to us.
Well understood. KPC, the issue is, where is this application for the public to scrutinize? Do we have it in a public forum? I think the issue is, if not, we can still do it. It's also important to know that the application is an application. It will be further synthesized, it will be analyzed, elements will be removed, and possibly others added based on stakeholder input. But the decision eventually has to be shared with those it affects. So, but I totally agree with you that it's important to get the application in a public forum where you can be able to provide input. It is also, in the same context, important to note that you still have time to provide representations in writing to EPRA, even when we leave this forum, and should you go and scrutinize the application and see something you don't like, you still have an opportunity to provide us with a written representation, written position, and then we will put it into consideration. And I think we are moving towards completing our discussions today. I want to invite Zipper to come and conclude for us from the KPC side. I will then invite Robert Mahenia to come and provide us with a way forward, and then eventually have Dr. Joan Mutua wrap the whole discussions and close it on behalf of EPRA. So Zilpa.
On behalf of the KPC board and the management team, I would like to thank you very much for your interest in this application. We realize it's not something you interface with often, and therefore the fact that you brought yourself here personally means that you are that interested, you're that keen on knowing what it is that we plan on doing and how it affects your relationship with the sector in which we operate. I thank you as well for your attention. After Friday, there's other things you could be doing, but you were here, and that we do not take for granted. We have taken in some of the input that you have given today for future improvement, and I would like you to get the assurance that the things that you have mainly raised concern about are front and center of our everyday strategizing, because we are not just seated waiting for the world to change and leave us behind. And that's one of the main reasons why our application has come with the requests to approve funding for infrastructure that will lead us into that future that we envision. Ultimately, our only mandate as a government body is to ensure that we deliver products to you, as I said, at a cost-efficient rate, but also effectively, meaning it should be with you when you want it and how you want it in terms of quality. So we are not there necessarily for profit. We are there mainly to ensure that you get petroleum product security. And you will find that whenever there's all this clamor or fracas around fuel prices, fuel supply and whatnot, KPC tanks will always have products. The pipeline will always have products. So our reason for existence is primarily to ensure security of supply for not just Kenya and for the region. On that note, I would like to pretty much end by saying that this is a 3-year process. Every 3 years there's new inputs to the model. It is not static. It will change as the environment changes. So as the EPRA has advised you, please engage, please send in your written submissions, please come for these fora to interact, and in the next cycle at the 3-year mark or anywhere in between, we hope that you would have learned a little bit more about Kenya Pipeline Company, such that your questions will be informed, and the interactions we will have will be honestly for the betterment of the oil and gas sector. We appreciate that we seem a foreign entity to most of the public, but we really are open to interaction and discussion, and whatever may not be clear, you are free to clarify over time, not necessarily today. So we have our contact details, and EPRA as well, being the coordinator of this process, I'm sure will guide you further as will be required. So on that note, unless any of the team members have anything to add, I think we will leave it at that. And thank you as well again for everything that you have contributed towards this forum. Have a good afternoon. Team EPRA.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Mahenia. I work with the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority in the legal department. As it has been said, we have gotten all the information
We have received your views. If you have additional ones, we are still open to receive them as the regulator. Same case with the pipeline. So depending on which is the most efficient mode of communication from your position, you can share with us more views. It's still not closed, and as the regulator, we are supposed to be neutral, not to lean on the side of either the investor or the utility that's the pipeline, or to work at the pipeline. The staff work at the authority. They are all going to feel the impact, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's the reduction or the increment. The application necessarily doesn't mean that it has to be approved in its entirety. There are adjustments which has to be made because the authority has to balance the interest of the consumers and the interest of the utilities, such that the services being offered are safe, of high quality, and reliable. So from here, we lead it back to further adjust the application request, taking in cognizance the views we have so far received. We have moved countrywide. We have been to Kisumu, we have been to Eldoret, Nakuru, Nairobi, and now we are here. Also, when we are looking at this application, we don't look at it just the way it comes. We have to look at the requirement of the Constitution in terms of the consultation, which is envisaged as a constitutional requirement. We are also guided by the laws most applicable to the industry, and that's the Energy Act, the Petroleum Act of 2019, both of 2019, and a law we call the Statutory Instruments Act, which requires that when a public body is to make a decision impacting on the public or a certain set of stakeholders, it has to involve them from the start to the end. And that's one aspect we are doing now. And not only that, I realized there was a gentleman who said it's a good thing to keep on consulting, because to echo what a certain GSU policeman once said, so whatever we are doing it for the good of the society, for the current generation and for the future generation. So without much ado, after we retreat back to offices, we are going to look into your views and make a determination which should be for the interest of all the stakeholders. And with that, I invite Dr. John Mutua to make the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Robert. I hope it's working. Mine will be very short because we have been here for a while. And just first of all, to appreciate the stakeholders. Can we appreciate ourselves, please? Yeah, let's also appreciate KPC for the good presentation. I was joking with Zelpa that KPLC needs to come and benchmark with them. When it comes to making presentations, and yeah, you know, we are encouraging all utilities to do the same. So for me, before I make the closing remarks. And also let's appreciate EPRA, Karanja, Director Kinywa for the responding to the questions, and our able MC, David. David is a very good MC for us. We really appreciate. So there's one matter that was raised by Mr. Kidete on structuring participation. I know Engineer Kinywa also answered it. And what is important, I want to say that the Article 35, 1A of the Constitution, you know, allows us, empowers, or we are mandated by that to provide every person, you know, like with information, because they have a right. And again, number 3 of that article, you know, the state is a formation affecting the nation. And for us, the Energy Act Section 11B empowers us to set, review, and approve contracts and other tariff charges for the petroleum supply sector and also the petroleum products. So when it comes to restructuring, you know, it has to be based on the Energy Act, again also on the Constitution. And I do appreciate that we need more engagement. We do engage a lot with KPC and the Minister of Petroleum and Mining on the tariff before actually we come to the stakeholders. But what I also get, and we do that in the electricity tariff application, is now engaging with the other stakeholders. I know we engage with the LMCs through PIA, but of course we do have other players, because at the end of the day, just like here, we wanted everybody to give their view, and their view has to be heard. So we'll also be listening to you, and that's why David was saying we have not closed the, you know, you can even write before we submit to the board next week, and we'll still accommodate that. But I think your comment was for us to improve on the process, and we are going to do that. I just want to say that because now we have done all the workshops, as David said, now is the time to prepare the, you know, the reports that we submit to our board for approval, and a decision has to be made. And as management, we will consider all the comments that have been raised in this stakeholder engagement, all the questions, comments that have been raised, because each one of the comments that has been raised or question is very, very important to decision making. Then we will review and submit the application to our board, because the board again has to review, and after that the decision will have to be gazetted. Our decisions have to be gazetted because these are tariff, it will have to be gazetted for 3 years, so that everybody will be able to use that as an instrument that empowers KPC to collect the revenues that they require. After that, we will be able to monitor and evaluate KPC's performance to ensure quality of supply of products, and also ensure there is efficiency in the pipeline business. Because when KPLC asks for money, you don't just allow them, you have to monitor and ensure and audit those costs. And that we will be doing that to see that by the year 2025 they are aligned. As Engineer Edward, the Director of Petroleum Gas, has said, we are in the process also of preparing to undertake a cost of service study before the end of the current, the 2025 tariff control period. And the reason is supply and dynamics change. So we'll also again, maybe in the next 1 year, be coming as we prepare that because the future is important. Again, we'll continually engage stakeholders on how best we can improve the petroleum supply chain, and because it's important that we ensure that we have best practices and the service delivery to the citizens is taken seriously by all of us. It's a constitutional mandate, and as public entities we have to do that. So with that, I would like to thank everybody who attended today's meeting, the presenters from Kenya Pipeline, the facilitators from EPRA, and you stakeholders, KPC, for the good presentations. We really appreciate, and we hope that when again we call you for some other stakeholder meeting here in Mombasa, please come and let's build Kenya together. Kenya is so important to us. It is a country that we have to love and nurture, because we owe it to the citizens of this republic. So thank you very much, and God bless you. David, was there an announcement? Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. It is not an announcement, just an invitation for lunch. Where is our... So lunch is where you had your tea, downstairs. So please get yourself a plate and a cup if you can, and enjoy yourself. We want to close our function with a word of prayer, and then disperse at our pleasure, but find ourselves in the dining hall. Thank you very much.
Let us pray. Lord, unto your presence we are this afternoon. We want to thank you for the fruitful discussions and deliberations, King of Glory. As we disperse, we do pray that the outcomes of this meeting be a great contribution into the KPC pipeline and the entire sector and the economy, King of Glory. Onto the food that is before us, King of Glory, we do pray that you may bless it, King of Glory. For those who will be traveling after this, I do pray for their journey mercies. And it is in Jesus' name that we do pray and believe.